And so I think the challenge is like a challenge that was forever in marketing, which is the inevitable circle of working on yourself and your skills to kind of improve and update that. And so I feel like you can download the template, but you still need to adapt.
This episode is brought to you by Warmly. Warmly is an AI-powered GTM assistant that helps your outbound team stop wasting time and start targeting the right people at the right time. Here's the play. Your SDRs open LinkedIn, and instead of cold scrolling, they get real-time signals like who is researching solutions like yours, who just switched jobs, or who recently viewed your site. No CRM updates, no lead lists, just useful context surfaced where they already work. If you're doing outbound in 2025 and not using Warmly, you are behind. Try it for free at www.warmly.ai. In this episode of the GTM Engineering Podcast, I talked to Vuk, CMO at HeyReach. Vuk came in with a grounded perspective on something a lot of teams get wrong. The idea that outbound is just copy, volume, and tools. For him, it's infrastructure, qualification, and deep context, or nothing. We talked about why the real bottleneck is not top of the funnel, but what happens after a lead signs up, and how his team doubled conversion rates by layering AI agents into their funnel, not just for outreach, but for segmentation, prioritization, and activation. He also explained why their main growth engine is not ads or outbound. It's organic brand ambassadors on LinkedIn, and they don't just cross their fingers and hope for mentions. Vuk broke down how they fuel word of mouth by building in public, spotlighting users, and designing looks that compound over time. One sharp takeaway: download the template if you want, but unless you understand your ICP deeply, you're just plugging holes in a leaky funnel. We got into AI, prompts, PLG pitfalls, and what teams still get wrong about attribution. Here's my conversation with Vuk. Vuk, welcome.
Thanks, man. Happy to be here. Thank you for the invite, I guess.
Yeah, of course. We had a great time and chat in the Sasana conference, and I thought, back then, it wasn't really clear if we were going to have a podcast or whatnot for the agency. But obviously, when we launched the podcast, I thought, we should bring Vuk on, right? So the deal. I mean, we have 3 questions here, right? It's one trend, one problem, and one growth tactic or experiment you run. Let's start with the trend. So hopefully you will not tell me AI agents, but let's see. I will take even that. Let's start from there.
No, I think that's the biggest trend for sure. But if you want to kind of focus it more specifically on things, I think what's been very, very cool, and this is coming from a guy, I mentioned this in another podcast a few months ago, which is if you gave me an AI agent and a typewriter, and to choose where would I go, I would go to the typewriter. But that doesn't mean that I'm not utilizing AI agents or that I'm a hater. It's just that this one, the typewriter, and the just old school skill means way more to me. But anyhow, I think what's very, very cool, and it feels like this is the stuff you used to watch in the first Iron Man, really, and you thought it wouldn't be possible to have. I think, back in the day, this like us as marketers, if we were collaborating with sales teams, usually that there was that notion of MQLs, and then qualifying that lead, free trial sign up or whatever was very, very tricky. It was tricky. It was different. And it was where the friction between marketing and sales kind of always originated, right? At least for me. And so I think what AI agents kind of made possible is for us to send and do all this qualification way faster, better, and more accurate, and see more clearly how are different channels performing for us, do the attribution a little bit more creatively. It's still not like you can know every single lead from LinkedIn, but you can very well qualify, for example, or all your engagers on LinkedIn or whatever you want, and kind of use this as a way to move leads towards the finish line. And this is the trend that to me it's very, very cool, particularly because for us as a company, word of mouth has been the main channel, and quantify that. Like it's it's not that straightforward, right? And so I think what these processes, AI agents, and all the tools and integrations between the tools kind of give me is the firepower to do that in a more, elegant and smoother way. So this is the trend I really like, and even though maybe typewriter sounds cooler in my mind, I'm using this on a weekly basis, and so far so good.
I was having a similar discussion this morning, right? And it was, I think, with the head of marketing at Story Lane, right? And we were discussing the fact that, unfortunately, there is this notion of like the buyer journey for B2B SaaS buyers, right? As something linear, non like fragmented and like from point A to point B, right? Which is
Yeah.
like, that's not how things are. We all know that and understand that. um but I don't know, I guess it's difficult at the same time. You mentioned that and I hear that, but I also understand that many marketers get this pushback, right? Like, okay, sure, they are from word of mouth, but like, give me some data. Like, I need to know what works and what doesn't. I mean, do you get that, or it's not how you operate, and like you have your ways around that?
I mean, honestly, I've been fortunate enough to work usually with people, in most cases at least, and in HeyReach that's definitely the case, with people who are passionate about that type of channels and impact, and so they kind of understand, how it works, and usually the correlation was not that hard to use to kind of connect the dots. Like you
Yeah.
can see, we get hundreds and hundreds of mention organic ambassadors and things like that, and then you kind of start including things which we did a year ago, which was like affiliate channel fueling word of mouth in different ways, and you can see that the number of free trial signups or how the things are kind of progressing there, referrals and stuff are kind of working with one another. And so if we have like a really good month on LinkedIn, that's usually the month where we get most free trial signups. And
Hmm.
so I'll never say it was 100% LinkedIn, but you can bet all our salaries that this is where the most stuff comes from. And so for me, I think even bringing me into the picture, that these channels are going to be the channels that where I'm going to focus as an organic marketer. And so you already kind of set the foundation and all the communication with the guys before. So I honestly, no, I only worked in one company that was outbound driven. So
So would you say then that for HeyReach, the like the main channel is LinkedIn, organic?
yes, one of the mains for sure.
Yeah.
We
And
still get a
how,
lot of stuff like one-on-one referrals and things like that. So that also kind of goes into that, word of mouth notion. But yeah, LinkedIn as a channel, probably yes.
how is it driven? Like through your profiles?
Mostly through organic ambassadors. So if you think about it, like our ICP, you have agencies, you have
Yeah.
sales teams, you have GTM engineers, you have others, but these three are core, ICPs. And all of them, especially agencies, consultants, guys like that, they're all building their personal brand on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
And so originally, like if first and foremost you build the tool that gets them, to the finish line and they enjoy using it, chances increase that they're going to mention you LinkedIn because they're posting content more and more. And then on top of that, like if they win with it, even better. And then you can also add a couple of more things as, for example, we have this flow, which we call outbound outliers, where we put the user into the spotlight. And so we unlock all our distribution channels that get traffic leads to that agency or consultant or sales team in particular. And we're kind of fuel these things, which they can also distribute and things like that. And so for us, it's mainly that channel, and our personal brands come after that. They still bring an impact, but most impact comes from organic ambassadors. There's hundreds and hundreds of mentions on a monthly basis.
Oh, that's very good. Do you use any of these for like thought leader ads?
Not yet. It's something that I'm now looking to find a person who can come in and a weird person, but in a good way, who can do some cool stuff with ads, like thought leadership ads and maybe some retargeting and things like that.
Yeah, that makes sense. So let's switch gears a bit. Let's discuss a problem that you see GTM teams facing.
Huh. So internally, the problems we're facing is, and we also didn't mention vibe coding, which by the way is another very, very cool thing I discovered recently. But anyhow, like I think the problem is usually when you start, it doesn't go as fast as you think it will go. So there are ups and downs you got to go to, fine tune your prompt, for instance, fine tune your funnel. Like it's not going to be, you're going to, I don't know, like use Trigify, put something into Clay, and then boom, you send warm leads to sales and everything is going to start converting like crazy. There's going to be some leaks here and there that you got to fix. And so I think the challenge is like a challenge that was forever in marketing, which is the inevitable circle of working on yourself and your skills to kind of improve and update that. And so I feel like you can download the template, but you still need to adapt it. And you still need a very, very deep understanding of your ICP and how it works because you discover things. To give you like an example, we qualify all our signups, for instance. And so if an agency comes in, we discover that if it's an agency that works in e-commerce, it's not an ideal client, just because their audience that they're selling to are not that active on LinkedIn. So that agency won't have the ROI and in some particular, I guess, verticals within the e-commerce specifically and some other industries. And so for us, it's important to update our prompt immediately to know this. And so we can, be transparent with that type of client, to not waste time, theirs or ours, things like that. And so there's constant things that are kind of happening. It's not going to put that flow and it's going to work and everything's going to be awesome. So I think the challenge is just like staying vigilant and very proactively addressing these types of things and not falling in love with, I'm just going to download, plug and play this and it's going to be magical. Usually, at least in my case, it was never like that. And I use templates a lot.
I don't know. I think that marketers, we are believers, right? Like we want to believe in something new that will like take away our pipeline problems or otherwise. Maybe that's one of the reasons why like many of us fall for all of these new tools and templates and hacks and whatnot. I could attribute some of that there. Last question is growth tactic or experiment you ran, or maybe it's something that you did in a previous role, something that it's worth like discussing and like sharing it with people.
So we talked about it a little bit in our content, but one of the most important things for us, like before joining full time, to HeyReach, like I was their growth consultant, and back then, the phase where I joined, we were looking still for product market fit and things like that. But to fast forward it, like one of the challenges once we started growing and getting users in is usually the funnel, it's like free trial sign up, conversion to paid. And this is where marketing and sales spend a lot of time depending on the setup of the company. And so for us, back then, the conversion rate was around 9%, which is relatively low on my scale. And so we had a couple of challenges with that. Like we were getting, for example, you would get 1,000 or 1,500 signups, but you only know that these are free trial signups. You don't know who they are. You don't know a lot about them until you do some proper enrichment and things. And so we started qualifying them. And as a marketer, usually the metric that's cooler to me is number of qualified free trial signups versus total number of free trial signups. That's, the stuff that I really need to know that the acquisition channels are working well. On the flip side, sales team so the chief revenue officer, so Ilya, was also worrying about, okay, if we're going to split like self-serve and human-led, and he had this idea that the human-led stuff, especially for agencies, is going to help a little bit if we can help onboard the agencies, kind of hook up some flows, webhooks, APIs, all the crazy things that they use. And so we had this flow within Clay that kind of helps us understand who's signing up and then, fine-tuning it, fine prompting it. And then depending on, is it an agency? Is it a big agency? This goes here, sends an automated HeyReach campaign or a cold email campaign, like whatever the case may be, to book like a call. If it's a user potentially who just joined this paid, but there might be an opportunity to upgrade or things like that, this also sends it to customer success team who then, for example, they have unsuccessfully tried to activate this integration. They're a big company, reach out, help, boost the retention. And so for us, this was one of the key things that doubled the conversion rate. So we went from 9 to 17% in a relatively short period of time because we were able to split, everything accordingly. And so for us marketers, we started optimizing a little bit some things on the self-serve. We still have a lot of things to do on the product marketing front, if I'm honest, but it kind of helped see the clearer picture. And it also helped me understand which acquisition channels and in what way are they working. So I understood better what's happening on LinkedIn, how different ICPs are performing. I understood better some of the pain points. And so we could potentially do things such as, okay, tell me, so we have, let's say that 30% of signups are agencies, just, imaginary percentage. And let's analyze their ICP. Who are they selling to? What are they doing? Okay, we can see the pattern that most of the agencies are chasing this particular ICP in these particular industries. This can dictate the content that we're doing. This can dictate maybe the features that we want to build depending on how they operate with integrations and stuff like that. And so I think this qualification flow started as the idea to solve two things: boost the conversion rate from free trial to paid and understand performance of different acquisition channels. But then it started opening hundreds of more ideas, and every month there's something to improve on that. So not just the prompt itself, but if you think about it, this could change potentially PLG stuff completely. This can give me the opportunity to maybe see the churn before the churn happens, if I'm smart and, as a team, we're smart to kind of input into the flow. So this has been maybe my favorite tactic internally, just because it started fixing immediate problems in the short run and then addressing a whole long-term thing, like a full funnel, view with accurate data and more importantly, data that gives you an action point.
And I think it's important because, very often we are fixated on like we focus too much, pay too much attention on like the acquisition growth loop, and then once you have the lead and the free trial in your case, okay, what do you do then? Like, do you just leave them as is? Like, I think there's a lot of value there, especially for companies with PLG motions, right? Where we are talking volumes. You have to do some of the things you did, like segment and reach, and then take different action based on the segment and whatnot.
Exactly, and it's like it kind of takes away that blindfold from multiple people in the company. So there are three teams that benefit from this in an instant: sales, marketing, and customer success.
Yeah.
And we all use it, but we all have different, I think, like ways that we could use it and ways that we could improve it as we go. So just think about it from the customer success perspective. Like if you connect all now the product marketing and usage behavior metrics into it, and then okay, these guys have this problem. These guys are doing this, but this hasn't happened. These guys have a lot of replies, but not a lot of positive replies. Do we need to send some prospecting tactic? Things like that. And so I think it could be magical. And that's the stuff, we talked about in, the trend question, which is if you continuously update and improve it, this becomes a better and better Jarvis. And I never thought we met years and years ago. And so if you told me that this would be possible to do it in this way, I wouldn't have thought it was possible. But now, attribution and all that things that we still consider a little bit imaginary, now you can see it kind of connecting. And
I don't know, but it's also going back to the acquisition discussion. Like, for example, we launched last month, right? And we see, I don't want to say spike because we don't have enough data yet, but the more, exposure you get, the more calls are going to be booked, and like consequently, like clients are going to be closed and whatnot for us as an agency.
yeah,
And in very often we may ask like, where did you hear about us, right? If it's not someone we know, they may not be able to remember the exact post or whatever that brought them there, but you see this like the more exposure you get, and the better, in our case, LinkedIn works,
yeah,
the better business is. So
exactly. And even like a simple thing, like let's say you've fine-tuned your prompts and you're now qualifying and enriching leads in a very, very precise and accurate way. And now you have identified the ideal ICP even in your automation. You can just add a lookalike layer on top of it and then find more leads and kind of create this infinite loop. Like your inbound channels are adding leads all the time. Your prompts are qualifying, and maybe for some, folks that haven't yet entered the funnel or heard about you, you're kind of learning from lookalike, and then you can do both inbound led and outbound kind of campaigns relatively easy. And if you look at like that, it's like a very, very good funnel, because the prompting is doing the job. It makes all other components better. And so that's what's fun, I guess.
Yeah, I agree. The only thing I would add here is that people also need to be careful. I was having this discussion today with another person, but it was about the fact that very often, these campaigns where AI is part of the process, the workflow, without having human review though, right, to check the copy, can lead in things like, I think the least that can happen is no, like someone will just ignore your email, right, or message, whatever. The worst that can happen is that there are many layers to that, levels of worse. But one of the things that can happen is that you misrepresent the brand, right? When you go with an email that's written by AI, not reviewed by human, and just send it out there. So I don't know. I think that we need to be a bit more cautious. AI has like very, very useful, can be very useful for marketers, but always have a human in the loop, right? That's my
Without saying, without you mentioning. But like, even if you're not gonna do outbound, say this, like you get signups qualified, you get lookalike, you fire up a HeyReach campaign automatically without any messages. Just automatically connect with these guys on LinkedIn if they're active on LinkedIn, which you can also have your AI agents kind of confirm. If that's the case, you connect them. Because you're posting content all the time, you're going to expose them to your content, and then you have an interesting flow right there. And then if you want to start communicating, sending messages, I mean, I'm seeing people do it 100% manually. I see people do the hybrid variation, and I see people give AI the full power to create messages. Some have some insane AI formulas that are creating some really, really good messages. I can't say, like, it's very, very hard to understand that AI wrote this.
Yeah.
And so it's impossible. And now it's also a matter of your personal preference. Like, what do you prefer to do? What's the lead volume that you have to attract? Maybe as an agency owner, I don't need that many leads, and so I can do it manually. I don't need a lot of fancy tools. I just need AI to do the qualification stuff and everything. But anything you decide to do with it, there's like hundreds different doors that you can open depending on what you want to do. And so I think this is what's very, very cool. Like you don't necessarily depend on only one channel.
Yeah, I agree. So let's hit a pause here, and let me ask the final question, which is also the call to action. Where can people find out more about you, get in touch, say hi?
LinkedIn is probably the safest choice, honestly, but even vuk@heyreach.io, like if you prefer the good old email, it's totally fine. Unfortunately, as a marketer, I'm everywhere, but I'll most likely be responsive on these two the most.
We will drop them in the show notes. Vuk, thank you.
Thank you. Always a pleasure.